And a TGIF, everybody. Welcome into the First Call podcast, representing Express Bet and First Bet. That's Jeff Siegel. I'm Jeremy Plonk. Each week, we take a look at 8 weekend stakes races. Jeff, most of the time, that means a big Saturday docket, but we've got some Friday night action to help fill the bill as our podcast unveils each Friday. We've got some night racing tonight at Remington Park, special 5 o'clock Central first post time there for Springboard Mile Day. So looking forward to that and our Saturday stakes as usual.
A lot of good stakes at Remington, which is why we're covering them, and we're covering 2. And whenever they run the Springboard, it's always an interesting race because you've got mostly shippers, but shippers from big barns, and it's one of those races that has points. So really, it's a good race. And there is a colt that I'm going to pick in that race that I think has a chance to be very, very good, and we'll get to that in a minute. But very competitive race, and we'll see how it plays out. And the Trapeze, which precedes it, has got a nice filly coming in for Brad Cox. So good racing at Remington Park Friday, and then solid racing for sure on Saturday around the country as we get closer and closer to the end of the year.
Today's the 15th, so that means we've got 16 days left in the year for these 2-year-olds that we're going to talk about until they turn 3. And then, of course, that's the magic year for all these colts and fillies heading towards the Derby or the Oaks. We've got a heavy dose of 2-year-olds to talk about this week on the podcast. For the benefit of those of you on our audio channels, thanks for listening in. Here's the schedule of races that we'll have for you. Those of you watching on YouTube, be sure to hit that like button and share this out with fans around the country to help grow our audience for the First Call podcast. At Remington Park Friday night, it's the 2-year-old fillies in the Trapeze Stakes, followed by the Springboard Mile for the 2-year-old colts, Kentucky Derby qualifying points on the line there. At Aqueduct, a pair of New York bred stakes races for the 2-year-olds. The fillies will go up first in race number 8. It's the New York Stallion Series. The Fifth Avenue is for the fillies. Then the colts go in race number 9 in the Great White Way. At Oaklawn Park, we'll talk tinsel and deck the halls. It's 1 1/8 there for the tinsel stakes. Maybe horses on the Oaklawn handicap path down the line. We've got older horses in that one going 9 furlongs for 200,000. You like distance, do you? Well, scheduled for 2 miles on the turf is the H. Allen Jerkens Stakes on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. A ton of rain in South Florida all week long. We haven't had a turf race in a couple days in Southern Florida. It doesn't look like that race will stay on the turf. So 2 miles on the turf is the expected or scheduled distance, but we could see that one switch to 1 5/8 on the synthetic like it was a year ago. At Turfway Park, we know they're on the synthetic, the all-weather employed there. The Prairie Bayou Stakes will be on our schedule. That'll go as race number 7 on Saturday night in Florence at 1 16th, the older handicap division. And if you like horses for courses, the Prairie Bayou is for you. Just about every big stakes race there's been won at Turfway in the last 2 or 3 years has its winner back rematched, and that one should be fun. And at Los Alamitos, the 2-year-olds are in the spotlight in the Los Al Futurity. Always one of the big Southern California springboard races towards the 3-year-old season. So we're going to talk Springboard Mile at Remington. We're going to talk Los Al Futurity on the West Coast, the New York Breds in New York. Jeff, it is high time to be a 2-year-old, but it's the end of the line for the 2-year-olds here again in another 16 days. This is really a fun time of year.
It is, and for the 2-year-olds, they will be still facing their own age group for the probably first half of next year, so they're not going to care one way or the other. Right. But sometimes when you're 3 and you're turning 4, that's kind of a threshold that sometimes brings horses back to earth. You know, when they start running against the older horses, you're looking at maybe a lot tougher. For colts anyway. You want to get it while you can as a 3 because the real world hits you in the face when you turn 4. Yeah. You know, but the 2-year-olds, they're fine. They're not going to. They're facing themselves. They won't worry about it to the older horses until maybe May or June, and especially with stakes horses, because it really gets more difficult there.
Well, we're going to start off at Remington Park with their 2-year-old big races of the season, the Trapeze for the 2-year-old fillies and the Springboard Mile. There'll be races 7 and 10 from Remington, a place that's near and dear to me. I spent many years as an undergrad from 90 to 94 going there as a fan and as a student reporter for the school paper. Then 95, 6, 7, and 8, I worked at Remington Park in the publicity office in their TV department and also charting races for Equibase there. So I really cut my teeth at Remington Park. I kind of consider that my alma alma mater, if you will, in the racing industry, learning the game there. A lot of people who I worked with back there almost 30 years ago now still work there. Dale Day, the track announcer, has been there almost since the day they opened the door. It's great to cover Remington Park. I do it each week for our Reasons to Remington social media podcast that I put out each week. And I love staying connected with the scene out there at Remington Park. It means a lot. Great people in Oklahoma City. And look, these races have developed over the years. We've got about 15 years or so of the Springboard Mile, and it's a race that's produced some nice horses over the years. Senior Buscador really kind of launched himself as a of note, winning this race a few years ago. Now he's one of the top handicap division horses in the country. So do we have a future star at Remington Park on Friday night? We will find out. Jeff, let's start with the Trapeze Stakes. It's race number 7 on the card. And I said in a written blog about this race, head west, look west. It's West Omaha. It's Miss Code West as the two headliners in here. Miss Omaha, of course, or West Omaha, I should say, is the Brad Cox trainee coming from Kentucky. Miss Code West is the locally trained runner who's won 3 races at the meet, 2 stakes races already in succession. She'll try to hold down the home fort, but it is not going to be an easy task to beat this Churchill shipper, Jeff. West Omaha looks like a standout to me on paper.
And she is 7-5 in the morning line for a reason. She was a closing third, a very promising third in her debut at Churchill back in September, going 7/8 of a mile. Came right back in a maiden race. In that race, she was moved up to second via disqualification. And then she graduated very nicely in a maiden race and improved her buyer number from 64 all the way up to 81. Daughter of West Coast and out of a mare by Medaglia d'Oro. She really should route better than she sprints, and she's got that classic 2 sprints and a stretch out pattern that you love. Brad Cox obviously loves her. Flavian Pratt will be aboard. Inside draw going a mile where you want to be. So, I mean, West Omaha 7-5, probably lower than that. Trying to beat Miss Code West, the Remington filly, who's very, very good, but not nearly as fast on pure figures.
Let's go back to Churchill Downs with Travis Stone and take a look at West Omaha and her dominating win by 4 lengths back on the 3rd of November.
Together, West Omaha cut the corner, grabbed the upper hand right off the turn, pun intended, fights on. Down the center is Pula. Hey, Olivia's coming up the rail. There's 1 furlong to go. West Omaha has put away, pun intended. Pula's outside. Bang, bang, fury. Hey, Olivia. Everybody chasing West Omaha, who's clear by 4. And it will be West Omaha, the winner on the wire. Pun intended.
So Miss Omaha going to be tough here. The 3rd place finisher in that race, Pula, already came back and won a maiden special later in the meet at Churchill Downs. So looks like a pretty live race there. And Brad Cox with the 2-turn horse on the stretch out. There is a lot to like at a short price, though. If you're looking at the late pick 4, the late pick 5, they're all stakes. These stakes races are in succession, races 5 through 10, 6 stakes races in a row to wrap up the card. It looks to me like this is a spot just to single. I know singling a 3 to 5 shot's not the way to go a lot of times when you're looking for value. If you can beat Miss West Omaha, then you can certainly open up the price on your ticket. But I don't see her getting beat in this spot, Jeff. I would single her with some confidence.
Yeah, and watching the video, we talk about quick action fillies or quick action runners, like they look like they have real quick action, Mm-hmm. She's the opposite. She's kind of a lumbering type of methodical filly, but that's good. That's what you want in a route horse. And she's liable to, make the lead and not have to really be pressured. And even if she's not on the lead, it's going to be all right because she'll save all the ground. She has all the makings of a filly who will run even better over a distance of ground.
Next up, we'll take a look at the Springboard Mile. It's the $300,000 feature race on the program. Kentucky Derby qualifying points are on the line in this particular spot. The Springboard Mile, of course, is a mile in distance, and notably, if you don't play Remington Park often, a mile is 2 turns there, no shoot on the backstretch, so it's a 2-turn traditional mile at Remington for the Springboard Mile. Looking at the history of this race in Stakes Company, Jeff, the last 9 years, 8 of the last 9 winners came out of stakes races, not horses stepping up in class that you so often see, and some of the top quality horses in this particular spot, like Otto the Conqueror for Steve Asmussen, will try to step up out of the allowance ranks. Man, he was highly impressive last time. There would be no shock if this horse is good enough to win for Steve Asmussen, who's only won the Springboard Mile 6 times.
Here's my concern with Otto the Conqueror, and that is that his first two races were good. They weren't particularly fast. And then he comes out of an allowance race in which he got a very strong 88 by number one off. But that race was over a sloppy track.
Right.
So I don't know whether the track moved him up or not. Probably did to a certain extent. But, he's stretching out for the first time, and the pedigree suggests that, a mile should be within his range. But Shackelford when he was standing in stud in the States, he was getting mostly sprinter, street sense, actually Derby winner. But he gets a lot of fast horses. So I'm not totally sold on that he has to improve over distance and ground, and I'm not so sure he's as fast as his last race makes him look on numbers. Now, on the other hand, I really like Glen Gary. I think this is a really, really good colt. He's an Iowa bred. He doesn't know it, and doesn't really matter. And he's by a first crop stallion named Maximus Mischief, who had a number of really nice horses selling the 2-year-old in training sales, done very well with his first crop. Not surprising based on what was offered at auction last spring. And he actually brought $150,000 in Timonium, which was a lot of money for a horse who at the time was standing for less than 10 grand. He must have previewed very well. Well, if he previewed very well, he's been even more impressive on the racetrack. Now, the first two races at Prairie Meadows, that's fine. I'm not sure he's beaten a whole lot. But then he goes to Kentucky. Your background, the Keeneland race is better than anybody. Yep. And all he did in that race was beat Valentine Candy, who came back and franked the form by winning an opening day stake at the Oaklawn Park. And he's a nice colt by Justified. Glen Gary is a good mover. He's a big, good-looking gray colt. A lot of scope to him. Galloped out well in that stakes race. Apparently has trained well since. 7-2 in the morning line. Louis Saya is going to fly in to ride him. I think Glen Gary is a really promising colt, and I expect him to win this race.
I do too. I've got him picked on top, and we both like what we saw on video at Keeneland. Let's take the fans back there with Kurt Becker's call of the Bowman Mill Stakes, an open competition.
There's a quarter mile to go, and here comes Glen Gary coming after Cows. Glen Gary from the outside, right alongside of Cows. Normandy Hero third. Valentine Candy is in fourth position. And Patriot Spirit fifth, back toward the inside. Final furlong, Glen Gary the leader. Normandy Hero is running to second, still 2 lengths away. A 16th to go. Glen Gary in front. Normandy Hero a length away. Glen Gary, Normandy Hero. Glen Gary, Normandy Hero. Glen Gary, Luis Saez win the Bowman Mill a half length on the line.
I think there's enough pedigree to get the mile here. We're only stretching out 2 turns, from that race at 6 furlongs to a mile. Saez, an aggressive jockey, should have this horse in the race from the get-go. We would expect Glen Gary, Jeff and I's top pick in here to win the Springboard Mile at Remington Park. If you bet this race or any race on the card Friday night at Remington Park, do it with Express Bet and First Bet, because they've got a $10 money-back special on all win bets on the card. Your first win bet in any race is up to a $10 money-back special if they happen to run second or third, so you got a little insurance to play with. Now, Brad Cox has another shipper in here where we think he's dominant in the Trapeze Stakes with West Omaha. He's got a contender in here in Gettysburg Address with Flavian Pratt in the main event, the Springboard Mile. I don't think he's the standout in this particular spot, but he's certainly a contender, Jeff. Gettysburg Address, fourth in the Street Sense Stakes last time out. But this is a horse, I think, he's got the pedigree. By Constitution, a Florida Derby winner. Jojo Warrior, the mare, was a grade 2 winner. The Hollywood the Summertime Oaks out there in California, wanted a mile and a 16th. I think Gettysburg Address will get the mile distance here under Pratt. So that makes this one a contender. Cox, Asmussen, Glen Gary off the Keeneland form. I find it hard to get beyond the Kentuckians here.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed, though, in Gettysburg Address's last race, even though he moved from a maiden to the stakes race.
Right.
They handed him the easiest of leads. It was an off track. He had the rail that day, only had 4 horses chasing him, just cruised to the front, ears up, just galloping along. And when he was put to pressure, he didn't have any fight. Now, again, it's one race is not a career. He certainly ran well in his debut, but numbers-wise, he's still far short in either races, either one of the races he ran in Glen Gary. And you talked about that money back special that if you run second, this horse isn't running second. I'm telling you that right now. Glen Gary.
You don't need it in this particular spot,
no,
Jeff.
It's nice to have it, but you're not going to need it.
Jeff, let's talk about a horse from your backyard and this one before we move on. Raging Torrent. 4 starts, ran well, winning the debut, then 3rd in the Best Pal, 4th in the Del Mar Futurity, 4th in the American Pharaoh. He's been facing Baffert bombers like Prince of Monaco and Muth. This is obviously an easier spot for Doug O'Neill. They get out of Southern California and they don't take on Baffert in the Los Alamitos Futurity, a race we'll take a look at a little bit later. Do you like him hitting the road at this particular spot, or does that sound like a vote of no confidence to you?
Well, you win a maiden race, and then all of a sudden you're running in 3 consecutive grade 1s. When after the first one, you actually a grade 3 in the first one, he was beaten 9 lengths there. Then you overmatch him in the Del Mar Futurity. He runs 4th, and then he runs in the American Pharaoh and folds up and gets beat 12 lengths. You know, whatever happened to developing a horse? You know, moving up, taking the one.
There are no allowance races for 2-year-olds hardly anywhere in the country, though.
But you don't have to run them against grade 1 Baffert horses either. You know? I mean, there's got to be a happy medium there somewhere. You know.
Well, they found one here, right? A listed stakes race in the middle of the country. This is the right kind of step for this.
Yeah, it should have been the second start, not his fifth. You know. So anyway, I'm taking a wait and see attitude with him.
Sure. That's Raging Torrent, the Southern California shipper. Antonio Fresu riding Southern California now regularly and going to be making his first trip to Remington Park. Let's go back to our schedule and move on from Remington on Friday to our Saturday slate. And at Aqueduct on Saturday, we'll get things started with a pair of stakes races in the New York Stallion Series. It's the 5th Avenue in race number 8, the first up. These are New York bred fillies in here, Jeff. A full field of 12 is great for betting as far as handicapping and figure out what kind of quality we have here. 6 of the 12 still have their maiden condition attached to them. So who do you like in the 5th Avenue?
This is a mess, this race. It really is. I ended up handicapping this race much longer than I should have, and ended up with 3 different winners every time I went back to it. I started off with My Shady Lady. She's just an average filly in terms of numbers and doesn't really have a lot of style. I mean, I don't think she can't win, but I wouldn't want to gamble on her. Then I went with Solo Shot because her first 2 races were very impressive on the lead. I tried her last time, and she just stopped to a walk, took some pressure, didn't make the lead, and I don't know about her. I mean, numbers-wise, she's average. And I ended up going with Artemis Girl, even though I have absolutely no idea how she's going to run around one turn and on dirt. I mean, both of her races were routing on grass. But at least she can finish, or at least she did in her races. She's by Solomini, who was strictly a dirt horse when Bob Baffert had him, by Curlin, and out of a Malibu Moon Mare. I mean, maybe she's always wanted dirt and never had a chance to show it. But she did win her debut over a distance of ground, so at least she's got that going for her. I don't know. I'm looking for the speed to collapse, and maybe she is going to make the last run. There's a lot of assumptions I'm making here, but I think if I'm right about her liking the dirt and the turn back and trip and the speed in front of her, she should be able to produce a winning late kick. So I'm going to go with Artemis Girl to win the 8th on Saturday at Aqueduct.
It's hard to tell class when you talk about young horses and who they've run against and who they're beating, but she does come out of an open company stakes race at Aqueduct to Tepin, and now she's running against a lot of New York bred maidens, so we have to assume that that's a drop in class for her. Artemis Girl taking on easier company in this one than she has in her last few. Bill Mott's got a couple in here. He won this race 2 years ago. He's got Miss Loud down on the inside and Book of Wisdom, both of those maidens. Book of Wisdom's been kind of nibbling all around. Could be one of those nibblers breaks out kind of moments here where this horse puts it all together in one shot. Book of Wisdom, one to keep an eye on in there, I think. The New York Stallion Series 5th Avenue Stakes, race number 8 Saturday at the Big A. Aqueduct rolls on in race number 9 with back-to-back races in the New York Stallion Series. This one's called the Great White Way Stakes. It's 2-year-old colts in this particular spot. Rudy Rodriguez has had a very good December so far, Jeff. I was looking at the BetMix database before coming on the air. So far in December, he's won 9 races during the month of December. We're only on December the 15th as we record our podcast. Rudy leads all trainers in New York here in the past couple weeks, and he's got 3 in here. He's got Antonio of Venice out of the 1 hole. He's got Heavyweight Champs, a debut runner in post 3, and King Freud in post 4, coming off a win last time out at Aqueduct. Maybe the one, Antonio Venice, is a horse who's got a little more credentials than the other 2, but it's interesting to see a first-time starter, $290,000 rookie, Heavyweight Champs, making the debut in Stakes Company here. Does Rudy Rodriguez have a hand to play?
He might. I don't. This race is such a difficult race for me. A lot of question marks.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about Rudy with heavyweight champs, and they gave 290 for him in the 2-year-old training sale. Tough spot to make your racing debut. But another one of those solo meanies. I mean, he must have done something. But I'll tell you this: a lot of guys are taking shots because this is a $500,000 race. Right. You don't have to win it. You can run third or fourth and still make a nice payday, and still, save your maiden for another day. So it's a mess. The one that I ended up with was BD Saints. This is a Linda Rice trained colt, who, by the way, she's got another in here, a first year, I believe, that I don't know if she can run or not, or he can run, but or maybe it was the other race. But bottom line is, I ended up with BD Saints because here's a horse that, if you look at his form, he's been routing 4 out of his 6 races were over a distance to ground and on grass. His 2 main track races, one-turn races, were pretty good, actually. If you look at it, I mean, he was a decent third in a maiden special weight at Saratoga. Nothing wrong with that. And then in his most recent straight in a stake race, I thought he ran really well. Now, maybe the mud moved him up, but he strikes me as a horse who wants to sit back and blast home around one turn, going 7/8. BD Saints, to me, is going to run well. I mean, if there's something better in here than him, that's fine. But I know he's going to fire. At least I think he will. So he's good enough for me. BD Saints from off the pace.
Took him a while to get his legs under him last time, and a lot of times that'll happen on a surface change. Got 10 lengths back. He's probably not going to be 10 lengths back in this particular spot, but he sure did finish well. Let's go back and take a look.
Second and third as they come off the turn and head for home with El Grandeo leading by 3. Agalos the Great is in second, and Mischief Joke is next in third, followed by BD Saints, who was last in the early going, has made a move out in the middle of the track, but in the meantime, El Grandeo has built a 6-length lead. BD Saints continues to gain on the outside, but they're coming for the finish, and El Grandeo has won the Sleepy Hollow under jockey Jose Ortiz.
So Jeff's top pick in there, BD Saints at Aqueduct. Let's turn our attention now from the Big A to Oaklawn, where the Tinsel Stakes highlights week 2 of the meet at Oaklawn Park. Tinsel Stake race number 9 on the card. It's $200,000, a mile and an eighth on the main track. Maybe some horses headed towards the Oaklawn Handicap Trail as they go through the Essex and all the prep races there at Oaklawn over the course of the season. Dennington, a horse who's been on the Kentucky Derby Trail, almost made it there in the Derby, 4th in the Lexington Stakes last year. A horse who's been in that part of the country before and should be the kind of player, I would think, Dennington, from 3 to 4, who can be a handicap division horse in that part of the country. New Orleans handicap, Oaklawn handicap. That's the kind of 3-year-old who's sticking around in the game now, who can get better down the line. Dennington's interested to me in this spot, but he's a big-time closer in here. He's going to need some pace. There does seem to be some speed in here, but I don't think it's an overwhelming amount of speed. I know you like a horse who's going to be on the front, that big, strong quality.
Yeah, I looked at Dennington, and he really won a nice race, got a career top number around 1-turn mile, but he doesn't seem to have that same punch 2-turning. They've been 2-turning him forever, and he's kind of a grinder. So I don't know whether a mile and an eighth around 2 turns is going to make Dennington run back to his last race, which, if it did, would put him right there. As for strong quality, a quality road colt, we know they're late developing types. This is a horse who, again, has been running on grass most of his career, and successfully. I'm not going to say he hasn't been. But last time out in a race that was off the turf, they kind of left him in the race. I guess they figured 5 horses, whatever, we'll keep him in there. And he just galloped by 9 on the lead, earned a triple-digit buyer number. And you got to think maybe Mark Cassie's thinking, he's by quality road out of a mare by Tisnell. Why am I running him on turf? Well, I was doing it because for the most part he was running well, but not recently. And now he's back on dirt. He's catching a paceless race. He's going to go a mile and 8. That shouldn't be a problem at all. He's a dirt horse. He's maybe always been a dirt horse. Well, guess what? This is a mile and an eighth on the dirt. It's always nice to run a dirt horse at Oaklawn Park because the trainer can't mess up and run him on the grass because there is no grass. So I like strong quality gate to wire. Again, a lightly raced horse. He's been first or second 8 out of 14 times. Again, his grass form is fine when he makes the lead. And he's going to make the lead here. And I think on dirt, he's going to just carry him just like it did in that allowance race at Churchill, which was 2 turns. I like strong quality gate to wire to win right back and do it again.
good post, aggressive early jockey, and Florent Giroux. I think it adds up as well. Strong quality, going to be tough in there. Speed Bias, Ardenwood, the two horses that could apply some pressure in here, but I think they're doing it at their own peril, running with that one. And we'll see how it sets up for the others in the Tinsel Stakes. That's race number 9, Saturday at Oaklawn Park. All right, the H. Allen Jerkens Stakes is run at Saratoga each summer for the 3-year-old colt sprinters. It's also run at Gulfstream Park for 2-milers on the turf in December at Gulfstream. So, Jeff, you know you're a legend when there are not one but 2 stakes races named in your honor at 2 different venues. The H. Allen Jerkens we're talking about here, race number 11 on Saturday at Gulfstream. This was going to be my express bet race of the week. I wrote everything up, and the last thing I did was look at the weather forecast when I was writing this yesterday. And I said, my goodness, who's going to be left in the field here? Because it is a monsoon in South Florida. The weather's just been terrible all week down there. Expected to be rain throughout the weekend. I don't think they're going to get this race on the turf. So what we end up with and how this race looks by post time could be a completely different ball game than what we see on paper here. It was the same story last year, right? This 2-mile turf race was washed off the main track. They ended up running it. I believe actually last year was when they didn't have the turf course ready to go yet. So they ended up at 1 mile and 5/8 on the synthetic. I think that's probably what we were looking at, 1 mile and 5/8 on the Tapeta as per the conditions. That's probably more likely what we're looking at here.
Yeah, and Value Engineering won that race last year, so we know he likes the all-weather. And he's inside again, and it should save ground and have a good trip and all that. I don't know whether he's as good now as he was then, because after winning the Jerkens, he won the McKnight. So he was beating regular grade 2 type of horses, and he did it on the grass. But I'm not so sure he's the same as he was. No. I don't know if he's as good now as he was then. So I looked elsewhere. There were 2 horses that caught my eye. One is McLovin. If you go to the ExpressBet video vault, you can type his name up and see his last race at Fair Hill. That was kind of fun. It looked like a throwback from the 1930s because they didn't have a starting gate. They break from a tape, and it's a race primarily for steeplechasers on the flat. Well, Levin is a flat horse, and because of that, and you can see his form, he was running against some pretty good horses prior to that, a legitimate, expensive listed company. He just outclassed that field, and I thought he actually looked pretty good winning. And now he's back on the all-weather, but that's okay. I think that he'll be fine on the synthetic. He's never tried it.
Animal Kingdom.
Yeah, So I looked at him, and he's a major player. The jock is a really good English jock. If you never heard of him, that's okay. He rode for Richard Hannon over there. He's fine. He'll ride at Gulfstream and picked up a mount here. So I'm definitely going to use McLovin on my ticket. But Swore is a horse that caught my eye. He is the original one-pace grinder. He has absolutely no acceleration. And I was kind of hoping this race would stay at 2 miles because he is going to be a 2-mile horse. 1 mile and 5/8 might be a tad sharp for him. But at 2 miles, and I don't see any reason why he won't like the all-weather either for a Graham Motion. His last race was a little bit better than shown. He had no excuse, but he only got beat 3 lengths in a race in which Francesca Clemente won it, who came out of that race and got beat in a photo in the Hollywood Turf Cup. So thought that was a legitimate race for him, and he's already proven he can win at 1.5 miles, so why not 2 miles or 1 mile and 5/8, whatever it is. Switching to Gaffalione, who rode him to victory 2 races back. I always liked that angle. And so I went with Swore. I think he's got a little bit more upside. He's only had 6 starts, so who knows how good he can be, and he's getting better. Numbers are rising. So for me, it's Swore over McLovin and Value Engineering. That's my 1, 2, 3, and the Jerkens, regardless of what surface it's written on.
Well, a little extra incentive to play the race. You get 10 times express bet and first bet wager rewards points on every bet you make at Gulfstream during the entire month of December. So the start of this championship meet is big time on your rewards, which you can redeem for wagering credits, handicapping products, all kinds of things in the Express Bet Pro Shop and the First Bet Pro Shop. So rack up those wager rewards points. Take advantage of every single thing you can do in this game to make your account balance sing, to offset takeout, all those kind of things that you can do and take advantage of. 10 times times wager rewards points on Gulfstream Park every bet you make. So make them with First Bet and Express Bet where you're going to play Gulfstream, including Saturday's Allen Jerkens handicap. Mile and 5/8 on the synthetic we're going to project will be the final trip there. So that was going to be the race of the week, but I couldn't put enough together not knowing what the field was. So then I said, well, what do we got at Turfway? That was my next shot. It's the Prairie Bayou Stakes, and I cracked open the past performances for that one, and I said, I think we found the race of the week. This is a deep field of 11, and it's all the classiest horses at Turfway over the past few years. It'll go as race number 7, the Prairie Bayou, $125,000. The purse, like the King, the won the Jeff Ruby Stakes in 2021. The 2022 winner of the Jeff Ruby is Tiz the Bomb. He's in this race. The Kentucky Cup Classic winner is in this race, that being Wolfie's Dynaghost, who won that earlier this year. Hush of a Storm won the Battaglia Memorial here a couple of years ago. Basically, if there was a good stakes winner at Turfway in the last 2 or 3 years, it's kind of a who's who, winner take all, as they say, in this particular spot. This is a good field for 125 grand, Jeff, and a great betting race.
It really is. You can make a case for a number of these. And I don't feel like I shouldn't have to take 2-1 in anything in this race, but Wolfie's Dynaghost is in fact a 2-1 morning line favorite. I certainly don't think he'll go lower. Maybe right. He'll drift because there are horses in this race that have numbers that are pretty much as good as he. I just like him. I remember, he's an all-weather specialist. He loves to win. He's won 9 out of 24. He's basically a front runner, but he can take heat. He can dish it out and give you a second move if that's required. And it may be if Runaway Storm wants to bust out there and go. Wolfie's Dynaghost has got the ability to sit right outside of him and then move when he wants to move. He's a perfect 1-for-1 at Turfway. We know he likes the all-weather at Woodbine, but he apparently likes it just as well here at Turfway. He won a 1 1/8 race, the Kentucky Club Classic. That was back in March of this year. Did it in style, earned a triple-digit buyer, career top. He's obviously in good form. He's training well. I don't see any reason why he won't fire a big shot. And if he gets the kind of trip I think he's going to get, Wolfie's Dynaghost will be hard to beat.
Down in Florida, he went on the synthetic. So have Torpedo will travel when it comes to Wolfie's Dynaghost. He likes the synthetic no matter where it is, the last time of which was north of the border.
As they corner in the Autumn Stakes, Wolfie's Dynaghost in front. Win for the money second. On the inside, Luckman. And then came Artie Storm and Tyson. But Wolfie's Dynaghost racing away with it. Wolfie's Dynaghost has absolutely toyed with them. And the Autumn Stakes was absolutely in the bag for Wolfie's Dynaghost from the get-go. Wins by 4 1/4 lengths. Second win for the money. Third Luckman. Artie Storm next. Tyson.
The value play in this race, Jeff, for me in the race of the week, and you can get that analysis in your email inbox each week with ExpressBet. Be sure to sign up for the ExpressBet and First Bet email newsletter, and you get that each week. Hush of the Storm is a horse who really likes it here at Turfway. I mentioned won the Battaglia back here in 2021. Last year was third in this race, and Hush of a Storm, for me, the question will be the mile and a 16th. Might be a little bit better, a bit shorter at a mile, but a good second last time in Allowance Company, but a credit, a stakes caliber horse, won that race by a nose. And really, this is a consistent horse. When it comes to the synthetics, a lot of horses don't show consistency. It's hard to stay consistent when everybody's finishing in a jumble, right? This horse has run 9 times in a row in the Super, and a lot of those races have had some decent field sizes to them. So I like the consistency of Hush of a Storm. Gerardo Corrales teaming up with Maury, they win 28% together. I like the tandem in this particular spot, and he's got a prep coming from the allowance ranks right up into the stakes, and he's been a stakes horse here in the past. So Hush of a Storm at 12-1 in the morning line. I thought that was the value play, and my exacta box is Hush of a Storm with your horse Wolfie's Dynaghost. To me, those are the two in here, and if we can get Wolfie at a modest price and Hush of a Storm at double-digit price in there, we could be looking at a $60-80 exacta here in the Prairie Bayou, and that would be peanuts at Turfway, the way the payoffs have been the whole season long. An $80 exacta at Turfway is like a couple of favorites. I noticed the other night, Wednesday night, when they had their card, one person took down the entire Rainbow Six for $218,000, I think it was. Single ticket winner. Favorites went 0 for 9 on the card. Just another night in Florence, y'all. I mean, it is hard handicapping, but it is good handicapping at Turfway. I was slacking with one of my partners here at ExpressBet, Dustin Fabian, earlier today, and I said it reminds me of like Keeneland, 2007 to 2014 or 15. Big fields, finishing in clumps, a lot of prices, and the handle keeps going up and up and up. They're handling $3 million a day at Turfway consistently throughout the meet. It's a product people are really becoming attracted to.
It is, and they run it in the evening most of the time. And so, if you want to get out, that's the place to do it.
Yeah, that's where you get out on one play,
The
right? It
afternoon
only takes
wasn't
one.
good for you. You still have the night.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to go through the grind at Turfway. You're not trying to grind them out. You're trying to get one for the week and set yourself up. Let's go to our final race here on the docket for the weekend. It's the Los Alamitos Futurity. Los Alamitos, we've got a great promotion with Express Bet and First Bet. If you bet $100 on any card during that card, you'll get $20 back in the form of a rebate and wagering credits into your account. So bet 100, get $20 any day of the Los Al meet here in December. And of course, the big one coming up on Saturday, the Los Alamitos Futurity. We know this race can produce Kentucky Derby and Triple Crown Trail contenders. It does almost every year. It may not necessarily be the biggest contender, but obviously horses on that Santa Anita Derby Trail have to be respected coming out of this one, Jeff. A mile and a 16th at Los Alamitos. We saw the Starlet this past weekend for the 2-year-old fillies. The Colts will go center stage here for a purse of $200,000. So Doug O'Neill gets out of running against these Baffert heavyweights with the horse he sent to Remington, and he gets to run for $300 in Oklahoma City versus $200 here. That seems like a good move, a win-win at least in that regard.
Yeah, for sure. But when you look at a race like this, the first thing you see is, how many Bafferts do I have to deal with here? And in this case, 50% of the field, you've got 3 out of the 6. But of the 3, I think there's one of the 3 that really has a chance to be very, very important next winter, regardless of what races they pick out for him or where he's going to show up. And I'm talking about the $1.7 million quality road colt, Coach Prime, who, before he ever ran, and he made his debut during the Santa Anita fall meeting, I'd watched him train. He looked decent, but nothing great, nothing like 1.7 million. He didn't get much play that day, 10-1 on a first-time starter.
Yeah, right.
And he finished third. It was okay, actually a little better than I thought he'd run. And then in the he stretched him out to 2 turns, and I got to tell you, this was like a revelation. I mean, he won the race by 7. You're in a good, solid number. He was in a box from the 3/4 pole to the top of the stretch, crying for room, full of run. And I was certain that once that room developed, he'd been, so frustrated for so long that he might not punch it in. But the way he switched off and then quickened and then accelerated with the turn of foot that he displayed and won the race by 7, to me was like, this colt's, he's got it. He's got what I want. That margin of victory could have been 15 if he'd gotten through, and he's trained well since. I think Coach Prime is he's a better racehorse than maybe he is a college football coach, I think. That's what I think this Coach Prime's going to be. He's a real winner, and I'm really looking forward to see what he does in the Futurity at Los Alamitos on Saturday.
Let's show the fans what he did in that maiden win, scoring by 7 1/4 under Pratt.
The stretch, Sandbagger, Bartoli, and here comes Coach Prime inside of them, still in hand and taking charge at the 8th pole. Coach Prime set down by Flavian Pratt, and look at him roll. Coach Prime finishing strong and eased up under the wire, wins it for fun. From the back of the pack, Indispensable got 2nd. Bartoli was 3rd. Colorado Cruiser 4th.
And that gallop out by as far as he wanted to in that spot. Could be a big weekend for Flavian Pratt with these 2-year-olds. Of course, Friday night, he's on Gettysburg Address in the Springboard Mile at Remington. Back to his Southern California base for Saturday, and Pratt will be aboard Coach Prime in that particular spot. I'm not a big Dion fan, I got to admit it. And if this horse turns out to be on the Derby Trail, I'm already like popping antacids about how the national media will cover this horse. It's going to be disgusting. They're going to make every effort they can to get him out there. He's going to be recruiting kids in Kentucky, and I know where you're coming from. But the gambler doesn't care. No.
And by the way, he spent about 20% of his entire supply of energy in that race, and he still went off by himself. I'm looking for him to sit back. There's pace in this race. And there's some decent horses in this race. You've got Stronghold, who was second in the Bob Hope behind Nice Oath, another Baffert horse who's everybody's one of the Derby candidates for sure. Winstock's another Baffert coming off a runaway maiden win. That was good. The Actines horse, Moonlit Sonata, won his debut in stylish fashion. That was good. So, I mean, it's a step up in class for sure. But what I just saw on video and what I believe I think of him, he's going to be a lot of press after this race.
For more on the Los Al Futurity, be sure to check out the blog section, expressbet.com, and at news.first.com, where John White has his weekly blog taking a look at the Los Al Futurity and the Springboard Mile with his picks. So if you want some more picks, be sure to check that out. And also John White with a nice salute to John Shear, the paddock patrol officer at Santa Anita, who passed away earlier this week at 102 years old, was working into his 90s. Godspeed and God bless the Shear family. What a life well lived, Jeff, at 102 years old and doing what he loved out at the track until just a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, but you can live to 102. You celebrate that. I don't know if I'll make it, but we'll see.
I got 50. I got 50 to go.
You're halfway there. So okay, you're at the half mile pole, and you haven't really moved yet. So
you thought the Alan Jerkens was a long race at 2 miles on the turf. 102. God bless John Shear, and a nice tribute from John White. So be sure to check that out at our blog section. That's going to wrap up this week's First Call podcast. Jeff and I will be back on Tuesday next week with our replay of It's Official, where we take a look at the weekend replays and the big stories in horse racing. We'll review some of these big races and then look forward to the action that's coming up next week. We're starting to wind down a little bit here with the Christmas weekend, but racing just really hits the accelerator as soon as the presents are unwrapped, because the very next day, opening day, December 26th at Santa Anita, looking forward to the Grade 1 Malibu, all the big racing. The Turf Pick 3 is back at Santa Anita. The Dollar Traditional Pick 6 is back. So a lot to look forward to, Jeff, and I know you got a couple more days to kind of soak in a little bit of relaxation before you crank it up. Tell the fans what you're going to have for them during the Santa Anita meet.
Oh, I'm going to be busy trying to do some different things. We're going to make what we call day makers, but my old day maker used to be one pick. Now we're going to do the best exotic of the day, whether it's a pick 3 or a pick 4 or pick 5, whatever. We'll just try to figure out what offers the gambler the best chance to make a significant hit. So we'll do that every racing day on video. We'll also have full card analysis, full card wagering strategies as usual for that. And then we've got other things we're doing. Of course, the 2 podcasts that I do with you. I'm also going to look at workouts a little bit more closely, where we'll be focusing and talking about some significant workouts. We're going to call, eye catchers is what I call it. Whereas you see a workout, you say, that one caught my eye, and we'll talk about that. It could be any horse. It could be a stake horse. It could be a claiming horse. We'll be doing that, and we'll setting that out on our Twitter, our X feed, and we'll also be posting that as well. And I do other things and whatever else I feel like doing. I can't wait. I know. And by the way, just for the record, one of the reasons why I'm motivated to do this is because my teams are terrible. I don't know if we're gonna. I mean, the football team, the Chargers are massacred by the Raiders. I mean, it's just. I'm looking forward to getting rid of all that other stuff.
All right, focus on the horses.
Focus on horse racing. So the horse player is the beneficiary of my terrible teams because I can't get sidetracked.
That's what we need. Then we need to root for the Rams and the Chargers to stink every year.
Well, they stink this year, that's for sure. And the Bruins are done, and the basketball team may not make the tournament, so that's done. I like the Clippers, but they're middling, so I don't know.
Well, Jeff, I'll remind you, it's always post time somewhere. So that's all you have to worry about.
True.
It's all you got to worry about. If you hustle, you can make one probably in France right now. There's some French harness about ready to go to the gate probably here as we play. You can play all those races with Express Bet and First Bet, and we hope you do. Have a great weekend. Good luck to my dear friends at Remington Park on their big night. And closing night at Remington Park will be on Saturday. They've got an extra day added. They were supposed to close Friday according to the regular schedule, but because of a cancellation last week because of some technical issues at the track, they added Saturday afternoon racing. So a special Saturday card at Remington. Wish all my friends there a great day. Jeff and I will be back on Tuesday. Have a great day, everybody.